Hi everyone, good evening. This is Kenneth Muyingo, the Public Relations Officer for the Ugandan community in the Netherlands. And it's a pleasure for me to bring you yet again another broadcast of the UCN Connect with Khan podcast. And today we have a special guest, one of ours in the community. Uh, she's a lady that needs no introduction because of the wonderful work and the impact that she's making in the community. Most of you know her, and we're going to be having an interesting conversation about career development and entrepreneurship. I think this is something that we need to discuss. But first, I just want to bring you greetings from the leadership team of the Ugandan community here in the Netherlands. And if you are doing some great things for yourself and you have achieved some good success, we congratulate you. If you find yourself in a tough situation right now, we want to encourage you to keep going, not to give up. And if you are weak or unwell, we wish you strength and a quick recovery. And most important, let's strive to work and stand in unity, because as community, as the Ugandan community in the Netherlands, our strength is in our unity. And with that said, I would like to bring in my guest and then we can get started. But what I want to request is, if you are watching me, I see that there's already some people on. Let me know where you're tuning in from. I would really appreciate some engagement. One of the things that we really appreciate with these broadcasts is that we can engage in real time. So if you are watching us from the comfort of your own home, let us know. I'm in Leiden right now. That's where I'm broadcasting from. I'm curious about you. Where are you connecting from? And just would like to give the opportunity to our guest for her to introduce herself and to say hello to our viewers. Over to you, Dr. Mollynn.
Thank you very much, Kenneth, and thank you to the team of CAN, Career Advancement Network, for getting these sessions. I'm Dr. Mollynn Mugisha-Otim. I'm from Uganda, and I'm currently tuning in from The Hague. I've lived in The Hague for 18 years now, so I don't know where I'm from anymore. I'm a Ugandan Dutch global citizen.
Global citizen. Absolutely amazing. So thank you so much. Shakira Matovu says, Almere, Netherlands. Hey, Shaki, thank you for tuning in. And we are just going to be having a conversation about career development and entrepreneurship. And you shared something, maybe just to just get into the meat and potatoes right away. Can you just tell us
Sure.
about your roots in Uganda and how your upbringing influenced your entrepreneurial spirit?
I was born in a small village in western Uganda in
Yeah.
Bushenyi district.
Uh-huh.
And for my first 10 years, that's where I lived with my grandmother and in a large extended family. And then when I was 10, I moved for 2 years to Kilembe because my father was working with the customs department. So I remember he used to work at the border with Congo, and we would sometimes cross into Congo and back. And we were in Kilembe. We used to explore, sometimes going to explore the mines, and that was always such an interesting adventure. And then when I was about 11, 12 years, we moved to Kampala, and for the rest of my study growth and development, I was in Kampala, which is a metropolitan place.
Yeah.
So I also picked up some languages. I picked up Luganda, and I went to a secondary school that was also in almost eastern, in Mukono, really to the
Yeah.
border of East. Almost, we had a lot of interaction with people from Jinja and eastern Uganda. So I also picked up some cultures from there.
Yeah.
And for university, I went to Makerere University, which was then in the city. And that's where I meet people from, also people from Kenya, people from Tanzania. I was in medical school. And when I was 27, I moved to the Netherlands. So my life has been through several stages. And for the most of our days in my family, we were a business family. My father was importing things from Dubai and selling them in on wholesale to hawkers, to people who had high-end streets. And I worked there every holiday. It was just normal to work there. And I
Yeah.
continued to work there part-time when I was at university. So I was exposed to all aspects of the business, and I was always selling something because it's a business family. So even when I was at university, I remember for the bazaars, I would always have a stand and I would sell whatever was moving at that moment.
Yeah.
And I remember one of my colleagues in medical school said, "Yeah, if you need anything, Molly can get you anything," because I was always selling something.
Yeah.
So when I came to Holland, it was like, okay, let's see how I'm gonna fit in there with my medical practice and also my business background. I was quite open for anything.
Yeah. Wow. Absolutely amazing. What a profile. I mean, school is like your school time moved you all over the country. And then
Yes,
you mentioned medical school and a business oriented family. And then at 27, you say you moved to the Netherlands, right?
yes, yes.
So, what motivated you to make this move? And how has this transition shaped your business perspective?
A natural transition because my husband then was my boyfriend, got a job in the Netherlands. And it was just natural that when I finished medical school, then I would also join him in the Netherlands. So it was like an automatic joining the family transition.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome. And so you mentioned medical school, but from the background, you mentioned that you are from a business family. You saw your father buying and selling things, and that also when you were in school, there was always this thing that if anybody wanted something, they would just refer them to you. Just
Yes,
so,
everybody knew.
just thinking about this, was entrepreneurship always a path that you saw for yourself, or was there a pivotal moment that led you there?
Entrepreneurship was just built into my nature
Yeah,
because when I was growing up, I grew up with my grandmother, first of all, when we were still in the village.
yeah,
Every Saturday was a big market, which was about 15, 20 kilometers from the village where I was. And
uh-huh,
there came all kinds of traders from even from Rwanda, from Congo, from all other neighboring districts. It was a big market in Mitoma.
and then,
And I used to go there with my grandmother. We would walk very early in the morning. And we didn't go every Saturday. We went maybe once a month,
yeah,
and it only made sense if you were going there to also sell something. So when my grandmother would be growing her beans, I
yeah,
would also have something of mine that I know I'm going to sell,
wow,
because at the end of the day, you come back with either normally you wanted to buy, the kabalagala, the small
yeah,
pancake, the
pancakes,
banana pancakes. Yes. So I could buy my own kabalagala and come home and give everyone in the village that, this is money I earned. So it was something that I actually, maybe it was not only the family, my father's family, but my grandmother,
yeah,
because she would go and sell her produce and then come back with paraffin, come
yeah,
back with soap. So she was like a little grocery in the store in the village.
yeah,
So I saw the way that you create value with what you have. It was more like subsistence farming.
and
And if
then,
someone in the village had a baby, they would come and buy some milk because we also had a cow. So I really got used to selling stuff very early and creating value.
and
So
then,
when I was going to university, it was a big decision because I was already very much in the business. And I remember my father always used to say, "I wish you would have been a man. That would have been so much easier," because he felt that you're a girl, you're going to get married and go. And this is
yeah,
so much potential that will go out of the family business.
yeah,
So I went to medical school because it was what every intelligent, bright, good performing person did.
yeah,
And my father was always proud to know I'm going to have a doctor in the family. But he
Hmm.
also had a bit of regret, like, oh, what a waste, because you're so good at business. So it was something that it just was this dilemma
Yeah.
for me to go to medical school because I was really good at it. I was also very intelligent, but I was also good at business. But it was more for my father's pride that, oh, we have a doctor in the family. And so I did that.
Yeah.
But even when I was in medical school, I was still doing the accounts of the family, the business. So every
Oh.
weekend he would come drive by the Africa Hall. I was living in Africa Hall, and
Aha.
he would bring a whole box of all the receipt books they had used for the week. And then during the weekend or in my free time, and I was in medical school, there was not a lot of free time,
Yeah.
but I would go through auditing the books and making sure that everything balances right well. So I did medical school and still a bit of the business. So it was one of these things where you could go either way, and I kind of did a bit of both.
Absolutely amazing. Wow. Thank you for sharing this. And just our viewers, please, if you have a question or comment, please feel free to engage on whatever platform you're watching us from, whether you're on YouTube or on Facebook. We'll be able to receive your comments in real time here in the studio. We would really appreciate engagement. If you have a question or comment that you would like to add to this conversation, we have created this space for you, the community. We believe there is something that Dr. Mollynn has to share that will be valuable for someone. Maybe you're thinking about business or it's something that you've wanted to do, but for one reason or another, you have not been able to get into it, or you have got into it and you've met some challenges. Let's talk about this because this is the purpose of this platform. And just going back to you, Dr. Mollynn, when you talked about different kinds of things that you were doing even while you were still in Uganda. But if you would zero it in on your time here in the Netherlands, what kind of businesses have you been involved in, and what kind of problems have you been solving?
Difficult question for somebody who does multiple things.
Aha.
So, yes. So maybe I'll zero in on what kind of problem am I solving? Because for every problem, there's a business around it.
Yes.
When I came to Netherlands, I realized very quickly that there was a challenge for people who are new or who are foreign in this country, and who, for example, didn't understand the language and were just trying to find their way.
Yeah.
And because I'm a very inquisitive person, I kind of, within a few years, had figured out a lot of things on my own. So I made it my decision to try and create things or spaces or services that would help people settle in. The
Yeah.
first time I was in the first years when I was already working, I had a job. I would be invited by communities, for example, church communities, to talk about any subject. A lot of it was to do with health, for example, upfooding. And if it was, for example, a Women's Day, they would invite me to talk about women's things. And then sometimes I went with products and services that they
Yeah.
could identify with, because I was not really giving new information. I was
Yeah.
just somebody they could identify with. So people would ask me things related to health.
Yeah.
Somebody would come to me, for example, and say, okay, I got this advice from the doctor. Do you think I should do it? Because I don't think I trust these doctors, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I developed my company, which was then called Mollynn Cares, where I was just giving advice and I was just giving talks and started creating seminars to give general information spanning from childcare, raising kids in different cultures, to starting businesses, because then I made it into a business. And because I was starting a business here, I figured out a lot of things. What do you need to start a business? So I would easily share that information in form of seminars.
Yeah.
And then when I was about to have my child, I decided that I was not gonna go into the medical career.
Yeah.
So I went into childcare because I really wanted to work with people, help people, and for me, childcare was a very good alternative.
Yeah.
But I was not only gonna babysit, I wanted to do it professionally.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, with a medical degree, I was still required to do a kind of like
A train.
certification
Yeah.
to work in a daycare.
Yeah.
And for many people, they thought, okay, this is really a downgrade from a doctor
Yeah.
to many people used to say you are just babysitting.
Yeah.
But I believed I could do this professionally and
Yeah.
I could swap my career. And I did swap my career for 13 years. I worked in childcare and I learned everything that I was there to learn. But I
Yeah.
also discovered and created a program for the company I was working for, which would receive people who had diplomas from abroad that were not recognized in the Netherlands or experience, and they would then do a certification which would make them qualified to work in childcare. Because I
Wow.
went through the process, I started a program for our company that was called the International Talent Program.
Mm-hmm.
And that was very successful because we had a lot of people who had experience, even people who are already babysitting, they can now professionalize and do it formally as a profession.
Yeah.
And when I resigned from that company, then I started a service where I guide people who want to transition into childcare. And so that's one of our services because I chose that because it's very easy. There are a lot of international childcare companies and there are a lot of non-Dutch speaking people who want to work in childcare. So that was a problem I was solving. I was getting people into jobs faster. And I was also getting businesses and childcare employees. So I know when I left that job, I continued to have that as a service.
Yeah.
And when I was also dealing with a lot of people, I realized that people of African descent have something missing: culture,
Yeah.
missing a connection to their culture.
Yeah.
Especially if you are raising children, when most of us think it's better for my child to speak Dutch because it will not hinder their progress. But then later they realize, oh, it would have been nice if my child could speak my local language.
Yeah.
So I started focusing a lot on encouraging people to learn their mother tongue and
Mm-hmm.
teach their children their mother tongue. Because when I was in this international childcare, we had kids who could speak three languages easily. Babies starting, like, if your mother is French, your father is Dutch, and you're in an English childcare, they would speak the three
The
languages
three language.
effortlessly.
Yeah.
So I thought, if they are speaking French and Dutch at home and the child can speak it and still speak English, you could speak Luganda to your child, you could speak Runyankole to your child
Yeah.
fluently, and they can learn it and still learn Dutch and still learn English.
Indeed.
So I wrote some books, mother tongue books, but I also did a lot of talks and seminars to try and tell people that it's okay. It's good for your child's confidence when they grow up that they can understand their culture through the language.
Indeed.
So all this has come together into my company, which is the Africa Culture Promotion Center,
Yeah.
whose sole purpose is to represent and promote African culture in all spaces. So when I go to the Gemeente, I go there as Africa Culture Promotion Center. When I go anywhere, I go standing in and representing African people and their culture. And the whole idea is that when you say you're African, I want people to remember something nice. I
Yeah.
want people to remember the party they came to. I want people to remember the African market they came to, where
Yeah.
they experience positive things. I want people now with our restaurant, I want people to remember that African food, Africa is about vibrant culture, good food, and not only the hunger and the war that people
Yeah.
tend to think when they think about African culture.
Indeed.
So that's the overall mission, and all products and services are fitting into that.
Wow. Right here, I just want to take a moment and acknowledge you
Thank
for
you.
for the work you're doing, because uh, for a long time, we, the people who come from Uganda and Africa at large, have been silent about telling the African story. And we have been letting non Africans tell the world about Africa. We have been allowing foreigners become experts on Africa and be the ones that are the authorities that to even decide what Africa is all about. And what you're doing is in a very practical way, but not just that, but it's actually also a solution to a problem that is been existing, because many people are refusing to tell their African story. They are refusing to share their experience. And in doing that, we sort of deprive ourselves of the opportunity that we have to tell the world about who we are. And I think you're doing that in a very powerful way, and I want to acknowledge you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and also what you mentioned, I mean, about Mollynn Cares. You mentioned childcare, the business, then the cultural connections. I remember I interviewed you about some of the books that you wrote for my business as well. So this is absolutely amazing. It's like we're going full circle now. And
Yes.
and now the Africa Culture Promotion Center. And I really like what you started with. It's like the problem. You start with a problem, and then the business comes up as a solution towards a problem that is existing. Would you say that for anyone who is watching us and they're thinking about getting into business, that they should identify the problems that they can solve around their communities, and in so doing create business?
Yes, there is that's the fundamental thing, because business is about creating value, where somebody can pay you and they are happy to pay you because of what you're giving them.
Yeah,
The one thing I would add to that, so you identify the problem and you create a product or a service that solves that problem. The one
yeah,
thing that is very important is that it has to be in line with something you love to do.
yeah,
So something you're passionate about.
yeah,
So if you're passionate about, for example, I love food, I love cooking, and I love hosting. So events, parties, restaurant, that is within my niche. So identify something that you love to do, identify the problem it solves, and then combine the two. Because when the going gets tough, you have to be happy with what you're doing. Otherwise, it will be difficult to go. And
indeed.
business is tough.
Yeah. Wow. So when the going gets tough, the passion keeps you going.
Yes.
This is good. And I like what you're talking about, that business is tough, because I think this is where most people get challenged. And I want us to just talk about some of the challenges you've experienced yourself. If you could look back on your experience and the journey that you've been on as an entrepreneur in the Netherlands, what were some of the biggest challenges that you faced when you were starting your businesses, and how you overcame them?
Biggest challenge, the business culture. I
Uh-huh.
was already somebody who does business easily,
Yeah,
but the business culture is completely different,
yeah,
because in the Netherlands, everything has to be done so formally.
yeah,
And there are some things that are cultural to us that can actually be a hindrance to business.
yeah,
When we talk about value, I think Africans, different people see value differently.
yeah,
Because as for example, as a Ugandan, I do something for you, you do something for me, and then we're even.
yeah,
And that's a kind of business. It's barter trade, but it's off the record, it's off the books.
yeah,
So learning things like business to business services, where there might not be exchange of money, but there's exchange of value, and that value has to have a money attached to it, a money value attached to it.
yeah,
So when I started business, I would, for example, I would be invited for talks all the time to all these African churches. I know that they are all, most of them, and NGOs and stick-things, and I know that they don't have a big budget.
yeah,
And I had a job. So money was not the bigger motivating factor.
yeah,
So I did some of those things for free. And or sometimes if they were happy, they gave me like an envelope with 50 euros in it or something.
yeah,
And then when I now decided that I'm going to do this formally as a business,
yeah,
it was very difficult for me to quote my rates to them,
yeah. They couldn't afford it.
because they were used to, like, come on, we know you, you know us,
Yeah, You're one of us.
Exactly. And
Yeah,
so the business culture, everything has to be formal. For example, I was already good at accounting and keeping books and bookkeeping and everything. But there's a way that it's done here that it is acceptable in a way that you can present this to, for example, Belasting Dienst,
yeah,
to any organization that will be willing to invest in you. They will always ask for your books.
yeah.
And yet, most of us do everything off the books. So,
Indeed.
getting financing, being taken seriously, because also, like, somehow people have the feeling that if it's African, it has to be cheap,
Yeah,
which is actually the opposite, because if it's African, it means you go through a lot to make it
ex-
happen. For example, cooking African food, you need to get the spices, you need to get the stuff, and that's more expensive than if you're just
exactly.
cooking stampot, for example, or just frying all these fricandel and stuff.
Indeed.
So changing the people's mindset that to put value, we don't put value to our culture, our services, and our business community services, because we see it as like, somebody comes and you tell them, okay, this it's my hourly rate is 100 euros an hour, and they're like, hey, but now you my brother, isn't it like 50?
Yeah, yeah.
But at the end of the day, but if a white person is telling them that this is my hourly rate, they will pay it without
They will
question.
pay exactly.
So those were some of the challenges, but also most importantly, keeping the focus. For me, keeping the focus, because I do so many things.
Yeah,
So keeping the focus was also something difficult.
yeah,
And honestly, being taken seriously wherever I go. Well, when people talk with me and then when they meet me, they expected an older person, and all those perceptions, the fact that I am African and I am a woman. I always meet some like, okay, are you sure you can do the job? And so most of the things I send my quotes and everything before I actually go physically,
yeah.
because I know when they see me, they will be thinking, okay, we were expecting someone older. I've been told several times we were expecting someone older.
Oh my
So
goodness.
it's the culture. The culture in itself is a challenge.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I mean, what you're talking about, that, for example, for the restaurant to be able to prepare a proper African meal, some of the ingredients you may actually have to source not from the market, but from Africa, actually.
Yeah.
So it's more expensive. And but when you think about the value that is derived from it, it's you can almost attach no value to it. I just over the weekend I was the African Granary, which is the restaurant that Dr. Mollynn is running in The Hague, and we had a most amazing meal. It was we were just I mean we're still talking about it to this day. And if you are watching this and you've not yet been there, please make a reservation. Go to the africangranary.nl. Is that it? And then
Yes.
you just make your reservation. You will be impressed. I promise you. There's maybe she can talk about it briefly, because I think it's important for you to tell people about what you're doing. Because is this the African Granary? Is it part of the African Culture Promotion Center?
It's a branch of, and it's registered under the same trade name.
Absolutely amazing.
Because it's part of promoting culture. African culture is three arms. I mean, the people, of course, the food, the music, and the sense of community. So that is the three arms: food, music, sense of community.
Yeah,
And before we did African markets where people came and sold stuff and we promoted some food and there was sense of community, but that was, I do it 3 times a year. And people always ask, don't you have a place where we can come and sit and eat whenever we want? So that's how the African Granary came up. And it
yeah,
is an ambitious concept we have, because The Hague is a metropolitan place. It has experts from all over the place. It has migrants from all over the place. And we have, for example, a Kenyan restaurant, we have an Ethiopian restaurant, Eritrean restaurant. In Rotterdam, we have a Ghanaian restaurant, but we don't have an African restaurant where, for example, You can go, and if you're a group, you want to celebrate a birthday, your friends are more likely not only from Uganda, you might have some friends from Nigeria, you might have some friends from South Africa. And to find a place where each one can look at the menu and find something they can identify with from their home
yeah,
is a challenge. So that's what the African Granary is there to fill in that gap, where you can listen to your own music, you can eat food, and everyone in the group can eat food from their country. We've only been 2 weeks open, and we've had 3 birthdays, and for sure they have been diverse. And yesterday we had a couple who's half is Chinese, and then the lady's half Ethiopian and Sierra Leonean.
yeah,
So she put the most amazing review, saying we did not have a place where we can get West and East and South African food in the same place. And
yeah,
so that is the problem we're going to solve. We are planning to solve. And even before, we've only been 3 weeks or 2 weeks open, but the word is going around because there's nothing like it.
yeah,
And that's the whole thing about solving a problem, because we've had parties where they say, okay, these ones they cook only East African, this they cook only West African, but why not have everything together?
yeah.
Yeah.
And then it's absolutely amazing. I was there. Actually, I didn't have a Ugandan dish. I ordered for a West African dish, and I was
Lucy.
pleasantly surprised because it was spot on. And because I have had an experience with I lived with Nigerians for a while, and I really love to like what you talk about. That when we talk about Africa, it's the food, the music, and the community. Yeah. So I lived a bit with Nigerians, and that exposed me to their food, the goosey, the amala, all of these beautiful dishes, and I like you really just blow it out of the park. So thank you so very much for that. And just going back to what we're talking about today, talking about maybe we could get into a bit of culture and business insights. Um, Looking back on your experience as a Ugandan, or how do Ugandan and Dutch business cultures differ? Because you talked about one of the challenge being business culture in the Netherlands, and uh, so how do Ugandan and Dutch business cultures differ, and what have you learned from both?
The central concept that is very much different is you've heard about time is money.
Yes.
We don't understand that. You don't understand that until you do business in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
Because the Netherlands is a service-based industry. People will happily pay you for a service that you offer.
Yeah.
The service comes with time. So, for example, if you have somebody coming to fix your wall or to fix something in your business premise or at home, they are going to charge you for the time and the expertise, because you can't fix it yourself. And they've gone to school so that they can fix that.
Yeah.
So Dutch people don't have a problem paying for expertise and time,
Yeah.
including the travel time to come and fix it. That's why weekends, if you have a broken toilet, you're going to pay through the roof.
Yeah.
And so, valuing time as money and factoring that in pricing.
Hmm.
I do business coaching for people who are starting businesses. And the one thing that I've noticed that is a challenge to all of us, not only Ugandans, but generally Africans, is pricing, setting your price.
Yeah.
Because if it costs you 10 euros in terms of materials to make a product, let's say to make a meal, like
Yeah.
I know many people who make cakes.
Yeah.
It costs you 10 euros to bake a cake. You cannot sell it for 15,
Yeah.
because to you it looks like you actually made a profit of 5 euros, but that's not the case. You
Yeah.
had to go buy the materials, you had to actually make the cake,
Yeah.
which took you time,
Exactly.
maybe 2-3 hours
Yeah.
making and decorating that cake.
Yeah.
And 3 hours, how much is your time worth? Your 3 hours, how much is it?
Wow.
If you pay yourself the minimum wage, that is 14 euro 6 cents.
Yeah.
So you need to at least add 3 times that for you to say, I am doing business.
I am doing business. Otherwise, it's just a hobby.
Otherwise, it's just a hobby and you're just helping out a friend and making a cake for them and getting your materials reimbursed.
Wow.
That's all. So
This is
those
good.
kinds of things we don't really think about. And that's why we struggle, because you hear, I remember I had a very unpleasant experience, and maybe this is, I might as well share it here. I've never really publicly shared it,
Yeah.
where somebody in our community was doing a service where they have to invite people from Africa
Yeah.
for their services.
Yeah.
So he came to me and said, "Can you help me? Because I know you are here legally, so you can help me invite somebody from Rwanda."
Yeah.
I said, "No problem." And then he says, "Yeah, if the person comes and it is successful, I'll give you 500 euros."
Yeah.
I said, "Does that include also all the costs that I'm gonna take?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Okay, no problem." So, but I did tell him, I said, "You're doing it already so late. There is a chance that this won't go through because it takes about 15 working days." He said, "I'm willing to take the chance."
Uh-huh.
So we go through the process, and to apply for a visa for somebody, first you have to go to the Gemeente, make an appointment to
Exactly.
get that letter, and you pay per signature.
Yeah.
And because I'm married, I had to take my husband from work
Yeah.
and take him there. And because this was going to be maybe a future business. So there is that time, and there is the fact that you pay to
Yeah.
get that letter, 2 signatures. So that was about maybe 30 something euros. I don't remember because that was a very long time ago. And so the application goes and everything, and then the visa was denied.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, you know what? The visa didn't go through, it was denied. So I'll just invoice you for the costs that I made.
Yeah.
And I sent him a cost of 150 euros.
Yeah.
And oh my God, that's where our relationship ended. And he went on social media, says, "You want to rob me," and all that. And I said, "I did incur some costs, and I attached receipts. It's like,
Yeah.
I'm not paying this because you didn't deliver."
Oh my goodness.
So I thought, okay, how do I solve that? I always charge a commitment fee,
Yeah.
because if it's successful or not, I cannot control the outcome, but I do put in my time. So I charge a commitment fee.
Yeah.
And that was a lesson that I learned, because then before I start to engage with you, I know I'm going to put in time. It's the same when I'm helping people who want to do their EVC to work in childcare.
Yeah.
I have to contact several schools, and
Yeah.
some of them I'm contacting them based on my reputation with them. So
Most
they know
definitely.
that if I bring a candidate, this candidate, I will have screened them before. That is all work.
You're putting your reputation on the line for it,
Yes.
actually. Yeah.
And I'm putting in a lot of time.
Yeah.
So when I tell somebody I have a commitment fee of 330 euros, the conversation normally ends there,
Yeah.
because they are thinking, what if I don't get the place? I say, yeah, but we will have done the work. And there are also all kinds of things we'll do, help you adjust your CV and everything so that it is easily received well by the schools and all that. But
Yeah.
I learned from that experience that people don't value the time, and time is money. So those are different cultural things that go into pricing and how you put your service there. Because if you don't value your own service, other people won't pay you the equivalent value.
Yeah.
So that is really a big cultural thing that, and I'm always learning
Yeah.
and always improving. But the time and the pricing, because a lot of people do successful businesses in the sense that they have a good product that people are paying well, but they're not making a profit.
Yeah.
Because
Indeed.
at the end, you're going to have to put something over your costs.
Yeah.
And how to price that is very difficult.
Indeed. Indeed.
Yeah.
Wow, this is good. I mean, if our viewers, if you have a question for Dr. Mollynn, please put it in the comment section. We would really appreciate some engagement or comment, whatever it is that you would like to add to this conversation. Be part of it. I think there's a beautiful analogy that I remember. What we get out of and in a session like this determined by what we put in. So if you are just watching and you're not participating, you have an opportunity to engage in the comment section. We would really appreciate to hear from you. Um, Moving on about what you're talking about, the culture and the business insights. This is really valuable indeed. And looking at our back to us, bringing this back to our people or our Ugandans. If what advice would you give to a Ugandan entrepreneur looking to expand uh, or to even get started in business in Europe?
Is that they should treat their business enterprise like any other profession,
Yeah,
because sometimes you need to go to school to learn how to be a doctor, how to be a lawyer. There's certain set of skills you need to learn.
yeah,
And doing business in such a formal setting, you need to really do your homework and invest in learning about how to do business in this country, in this culture.
yeah,
And it's never done. You're always getting better, you're always improving, you're always adding on information. So even after several years in business, I cannot say that I know it all. I am
yeah,
always learning and I'm always looking out for opportunities. And just be prepared to face the challenges, because sometimes it can look easy that, okay, maybe if I just found a job, it would be much easier. Even the people with a job
yeah,
are also struggling with challenges. You always have to keep improving yourself. You always have to keep doing better than you are doing today. You have to do better tomorrow than you are doing today. So do your homework. What I know for sure is the Netherlands is a very good business environment. It's a very good country to do business because people pay good for services and products.
yeah,
And the one thing that I think we underestimate as people of African descent is how much we have to offer.
yeah,
Because you can think of almost anything, no one else is offering it.
yeah,
Not to a level, not to a standard that people will happily pay for it.
yeah,
So when I see like somebody who's thinking of starting business, there is about a million things you can do. Because the niche, people tend to think, because when I was going to start a business for people of African descent, everyone told me you're never going to get money from people like that. You're
yeah,
never going to get money from things related to Africa. Some people told me change the name.
yeah,
But if you look around the time after George Floyd, everybody's looking for how to identify with Africa. Everyone is looking for, even Africans are looking for their identity, identifying with their identity. So
yeah,
pick what you're passionate about and go for it, because Netherlands is a good place to do business. Many
wow,
people are afraid, for example, of taxes. Uh, as Africans, we are not a formal people. Anything that has formalities, rules, regulations, we run away.
yeah,
If you look at the restaurant industry, there's so many rules. Childcare, there are so many rules.
yeah.
But then you just learn the rules and just go
Play
by
by
the
the
rules.
rules. Yeah,
Yeah, it seems to cost a lot. You pass the cost to the customer,
yeah,
because people here are willing to pay for a good service and a good product. So
exactly.
go for it. I want
Indeed.
to give an example. For example, you see my hair.
Yes, please.
It doesn't look beautiful for nothing. It costs a lot.
Yeah,
And it's called Sister Locks.
yeah.
And there is less than 100 people in the whole of the Netherlands who can do this hair, who are certified.
Less than 100.
Less than 100.
Wow.
And more African people are wanting to go natural with their hair.
Yeah,
This is natural hair. There's no extensions, just my hair. But I have to go to Almere every 6 weeks to get my hair done. And I've come across people who say, "Oh, I can do your hair," because they look at like, "Oh, you have sister locks." Yes, I say, "I can do your hair." I say,
yeah,
"Okay, are you certified?" They're like, "No." I said, "Then I'm sorry, you're not gonna touch my hair."
yeah,
Simply because I've invested so much in this
yeah,
and I'm not gonna mess it up.
Indeed.
And yet to certify costs, yeah, they say it's so expensive to certify, and certifying is a scam. I say, I'm sorry. When you're certified, they are regularly checking to see that you're doing the right thing.
Yeah,
When you're not certified, nobody's checking.
exactly.
Tomorrow I come to you and you combine two locks and then it's messed up. So
Yeah,
certifying is about 1,500, 2,000 euros.
yeah,
But if you charge a customer 150 euros per 3 hour session, you can do three customers in a day. How many people are earning that much money?
yeah,
And you don't want to certify. So I say, I'm sorry. I know, even I know two Ugandan ladies like, oh, I can do your hair. I'm like, are you certified? Because if you're certified,
yeah,
they can find you on the website of Sister Locks directly.
yeah,
So how did I find my hairdresser? I just go and look for certified Sister Locks consultants in the Netherlands. I have people coming from Germany to do their hair here.
yeah,
So if you think investing and professionalizing is difficult, then you cannot go anywhere in this market, because this is a market where people who are willing to pay well also value quality. So go for that market. You don't need everybody coming to you. You just need a few to maintain your business.
indeed.
So I would encourage, for example, there is hair, there is making dresses. I mean, people have to go to Uganda to make these dresses. There is
Yeah,
doing nails. There's all kinds of things that you can do. Pick what you like and just go and do a certificate.
yeah,
You don't need a PhD. We like to study a lot. Everyone's like, why didn't you do a PhD? I say, for what? I
yeah,
do a certificate in childcare. I do a certificate now in business training, and that's all I need. Because
yeah,
that's when I go with that, people know that I know what I'm talking about.
yeah.
So it doesn't matter for business. Get the necessary certificates and pick a niche and just go for it.
Awesome. Wow, this is good. This is good. Thank you so much. Um, so, looking at the Africa Cultural Promotion Center, where it is right now, I think you have done some scaling through the stages, because like what you mentioned earlier, that you started out just doing it every now and then if there's an event, you and then the requests were coming, why don't you have a place where we could actually be able to come every day? And um, how have you navigated the scaling of your business, and what is the strategy that worked best for you?
Because the Africa Culture Promotion Center in itself has such a um, wide mission
Yeah,
to promote African people. Like, where do you start? I started with things that I like to do: promote food and organize events.
yeah,
Our first event was actually during Corona, because it's during Corona, and that is when events were not allowed.
yeah,
So when I told people I'm leaving my job for that I've had for 13 years and I'm going to start my own now, I'm going to focus on starting a company, the Africa Culture Promotion Center, everybody thought I was crazy.
yeah.
But during Corona, people were tired of the lockdown. People were desperately looking for a way and somewhere to
Everybody
go.
just go somewhere. Just
Yeah. And if you're going to be successful in business, you have to be willing to sometimes think alone.
yeah.
Because I remember during in The Hague, we normally do
I
a
think it was,
barbecue.
sorry, it was breaking up there. You said if to do business, you have to be.
You have to be ready and willing sometimes to think alone, like to be the only one with the idea where everybody looks at you and says, you must be crazy.
Uh huh. Yes, please
Because
go on.
during Corona, people were afraid to go out, and the rules were so like you had to scan these QR codes
Yeah,
and everything. And I said, first of all, immediately, soon in the Corona, they said kids' activities were allowed.
yeah.
So I registered our business in May, and it was still in the middle of the lockdown. But
This is
kids' activities
2019, right?
were allowed. 20
Yeah.
no 2021 or
Yeah.
2020,
Uh
and
huh.
people were not allowed, but kids' activities were allowed. So our
yeah,
first activities were kids camps. We would take kids to the zoo, and it was only African kids, kids of
yeah,
African descent. And in such times of loneliness and isolation, kids loved that
yeah,
because they could come out, we could go somewhere, but we were already building a market. And as soon as they released a little bit, I said, okay, we're going to have an African market. Because for 2 years, people had nowhere, no markets to sell their products. I knew people who had like a house full of stuff and nowhere to sell them. You know, people go to Africa, they come with stuff to sell.
yeah,
So I said, okay, we're going to do a Christmas market. And
yeah,
people had to scan QR codes. People had to do the swab, but
yeah,
it was full instantly.
yeah,
I was shit scared because I remember the day of the market is when they also said they're going to lock down again from 7 p.m. till
yeah.
24 hours before the market. We didn't know if it was going to go or not, and people had already paid their money.
Oh my goodness.
But I told people were calling me and I said by 7 p.m. we know.
Yeah,
But then the news was saying, oh, they are going to do a lockdown again. And that was our first market, and it left. It was like the meal you had on Friday where you keep thinking, I want to have another one.
yeah,
So when they opened a few months later and all restrictions were lifted, the markets were a big hit. People were calling me, when is the next market? So it
when
kind of was
when you come
self-promoting.
again, yeah, yeah,
Exactly. So if I had listened to people who were saying this is crazy because it's lockdown, I always start with what can I do now?
yeah,
And I wanted a restaurant because this restaurant is 2 weeks old, but I've wanted it for many years.
yeah,
And then we had a lockdown. So when the lockdown ended, I started to think, okay, what can I do now? And so at the markets, I promoted food, but I also looked for all kinds of festivals, the Rotterdam Food Festival, all Africa food festivals. I would go there and sell those chapatis and samosas and Rolex. That's exactly what I was selling, only that. And people would come to me and say, this is the best samosa I've eaten. I'm like, oh, wow. So it kind of built my confidence that people like my food.
yeah,
And so I knew that by the time I build the restaurant, I get the restaurant, I already have a market.
yeah,
So the full numbers we're having right now is from the market that I worked on in the previous years. So when it comes to business and having a dream, we tend to want the money now.
yeah,
And that's what I've experienced with our community. We want the money now. So if
yeah,
something is not making money now, you're out.
yeah,
But I've always been aware at what stage am I and where is this leading? Because I'm at a stage where I'm driving to markets and selling food. People look at me like there's a doctor there selling food.
yeah,
But I am building to the dream, the restaurant, because by the time the restaurant is there, I've built a network on Facebook, on social media. So when we say we're open, nobody's asking who are these people because they
everybody knows.
already have met us, they already know us. So
Wow.
I have been building it up gradually. And then I also follow feedback. I get a lot of feedback. People are like, it would be nice to have this. And then I'm thinking, okay, maybe there's a product we can incorporate around this. So I follow the feedback. I keep the ear on the ground. I'm talking to people and listening to people, listening to what does the community actually need.
Yeah,
And so it is far from done. It is
wow,
only a beginning. I know there is so much that we need in our community. We just need to be brave. For example, we need an event center. It is largely dominated by Turkish and Moroccan people,
yeah,
but an event center where you can go and serve whatever you like, serve our food, and why not? We
indeed,
need that. So it is growing, and it is the product and the range of services is developing, and it's just having confidence that this is what our people need. And this is what the community needs. Even most of our clients are not necessarily Africans, but people do love Africa.
indeed,
People love everything African. And The Hague and the Netherlands generally, people are so experimental.
yeah,
They want to try out. They're like, oh, Ugandan food, I've never had that. And they want to try it out.
yeah,
So I am so confident that people actually love what we're giving. people who know us and those who are yet to know us. So it's like, in actually they say Yoleng,
Yeah.
where they say the way is open. It's literally an open path.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Awesome. Awesome indeed. This is good. Let's switch gears up a bit and talk about personal growth and some lessons that you've learned yourself on your journey. Um, what's the most valuable lesson that you've learned as an entrepreneur so far?
So I've learned is that I have to improve myself and I have to keep going.
Yeah.
There is not a single day, and I've been teaching this to my kids as well, when you need
Yeah.
to stop.
Yeah.
Yes, you can relax, but there's always work to do. So I noticed that if I have some quiet months when I'm not doing something, if let's say I have a quiet week, it will show up in my financials next month.
Yeah.
And I noticed that the money coming in this week is the work I did a few months ago, a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
So if I stop, and the work that I'm talking about is not only about creating products and services, it's also working on myself,
Yeah.
going for workshops, going for seminars, going for, sometimes there are all these kinds of free courses and
Yeah.
networking. Sometimes I'm going there. So every time I go somewhere, there is a purpose.
Yeah.
I'm either going to represent my company, or I'm going to network, or I'm going to learn something.
Yeah.
So you have to keep busy. You have to keep expanding your knowledge and your network and your skill.
Very important. Wow. This is good. And looking back on your own, just bringing it back to you, how do you balance work, personal life, and your cultural identity while running the businesses that you run?
But yeah, that is a bit of a difficult situation because for a long time my business was run from home.
Yeah.
So there were no working hours. I think towards the end of Corona, I nearly had a burnout. And I'm a fairly energetic person. I'm so full of energy. But there was a time when I realized I have to stop every once in a while and breathe and relax and also connect with family. My kids were younger then, so I had to do much less than I can do now. So I've had to consciously remind myself that rest is also as important in my efficiency as the product that I bring out. So I have to consciously remind myself, because culturally, we don't really rest. We tend to keep going. And so I've learned, especially from the Dutch culture, that sometimes you have to take a break, sometimes you have to close because the work never stops. So that is the one thing that I've had to learn. I think you went off a bit. That's the one thing that I've had to
No,
learn, that
I
work
was
never
right here.
stops.
Yeah.
Yes. So I have to consciously remind myself. And then the other thing that I had to learn very quickly, because I had young children, they are now both teenagers. But suddenly I find myself wanting to spend more time with them, because you see them grow and you see them, and you seem to realize that there will be a time when they don't even need you.
Yeah.
So I keep telling people also, when I'm mentoring someone and when I'm guiding someone, I say, if you have a family, take some time for your family. Because to be honest, I think when we're in Uganda, there's a little bit of shortage for time, because you're
Yeah.
looking at a life expectancy of about 60, 67. And after that, you're like in your bonus years and all
Yeah.
that. And then when I look at the life expectancy in the Netherlands, I am expected to live at least until 80.
Yeah.
There's no rush really. I can
Yeah.
raise my kids, and then when they're done, when they're flying on their own, I can focus more into my business. And that's why I took off 13 years working in childcare so that I could raise them. So I've had to consciously remind myself that rest is as important to my efficiency as the product that I put out. And that's not something culturally. I mean, we just finished a whole year of running mental health sessions for people of African descent, and rest, stress, mental health are all not things that we think about as Africans. We work until we drop.
Yeah.
And I've realized I have to invest in my relationship, for example, because I'm a wife as well. And so thinking, what are some of the ways he appreciates the time that we spend together? Like what does he like? Oh, is it cooking a good meal, or is it just sitting down and watching a movie together? And sometimes I have the laptop on my laps, and he's watching something, and I'm just sitting next to him. I'm like, no, that's not being present. So I have to remind myself, switch it off, put it away. You can do the
Yeah.
work tomorrow because it never ends.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it is a work in progress, to be honest, balancing what I do. But when you're self-employed, there are times when the work is very high, the peak,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then it slows down. So get those rhythms for when it slows down. Take a day, take some time for yourself, and recharge your batteries. Then you'll be more effective.
Awesome. This is good stuff. This is good. Thank you so much. I'm loving it. And I know our viewers also are getting value out of it. Even though they're not saying it, they've refused to say anything, I will say it for them. But talking about the future vision and maybe to get some advice from you, where do you see your business in the next 5 years? And what's the kind of impact that you hope to make in the future?
The next 5 years, I'm looking at three things that I need to have realized.
Yes.
First of all, we need a business school for people of African descent, people of migrant descent.
Yeah.
So we're working on that. And I'm partnering with a few people because, the different municipalities have business schools and stuff. But even they have realized that they don't seem to be reaching the people they want to reach. Initially, when you talked about creating something for a particular group, even
Yeah.
municipalities were against that because they wanted to be inclusive.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I went to the Gemeente and said, I want to have some reading sessions on Wednesdays, like story time for children of African descent. It was no. They
Hmm.
said, no, you cannot just choose one group, you have to be inclusive.
Hmm.
And I said, okay, let's do it then. I'm going to gather some volunteers from different countries, and we call it worldwide stories.
Hmm.
So we ran that for a year, and every we did it once a month, and every month would be a different country.
Yeah.
So we had Spanish, we had Chinese, we had I remember was it Syrian. So I mean, their no did not mean that I'm gonna say, okay, that's not possible, I'm gonna give up, because
Yeah.
I knew if I can put it, sometimes you have to put something in a way they like to see it.
Yeah.
But with the at the back of your mind, you know what you want to achieve. What I wanted to achieve is to have African stories in the library.
Yeah.
So even if they said it was going to be once a month or once a year, I was good with that.
Yeah.
And then a year later, they approached me and said, are you still interested in something for people of African descent? I said, oh, of course. They said, yeah, we have a space for you and we can put it in the program because we are finding it important that we can reach all the communities. So I thought,
Wow.
okay. So
Wow.
it took a year for them to come around, and
Yeah.
now they were looking for me.
Yeah.
And this is the principle I've used whenever I hit a wall,
Yeah.
I do it anyway.
Yeah.
So when I started the Africa Cultural Promotion Center, I went to Gementes for financing and everything. It was no, no, no. They only finance people they know. So I didn't have a name. I was a nobody. They liked my ideas, but they just didn't like me.
Yeah.
So I said, no problem. I'm still going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
And then they will look for me. And that's what they are doing now.
Yeah.
Because they look for me and they're like, oh, we see you are very active in the community. We see you reach people. Would you like to look at this program? Would you like to look at this? So if I had stopped 3 years ago when I went and they were not welcoming me,
Yeah.
I just said I'm gonna do it anyway because that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
And in future, when they see the value, they will call me, and that's
Yeah.
what they're doing now. So
Yeah.
I
Well, we
want
should
to
give them
create.
an invoice.
Pardon?
We should give them an invoice.
Now I do,
Yeah.
but I don't go for nothing. If they're calling me, I quote my price.
Yeah.
But the fact that they now see it as important. So what I want to see in the next 5 years is a space in every sphere where people of African descent can feel free to participate and culturally involve themselves, whether
Indeed.
in politics or in business or in education, everywhere. I would like African children to go around feeling proud of being African children
Yeah.
because they have something they can give. When we started to do we started the kids activities, and it was only African people. But it was difficult because most African parents are not paying the fee, because I was taking kids on a trip, and so I would have to hire a space, hire a car. We didn't have a place of our own. So it was costing about 75 euro for a full day, which is not much because when you're paying daycare, you pay a lot more.
Yeah.
But we didn't have enough numbers to really make it continuous. But the kids loved it because they could be themselves. We could be on the bus. For some reason, we are very loud people and we're fine with it. For once, they could be loud without
Yeah.
anybody telling them shh and
Yeah.
looking at them like, what's wrong with you?
Exactly.
We
And
could
then
eat our food. We were cooking, and we spend a whole day,
just be
every
yourself.
school holiday, being themselves, and they made friends.
Yeah.
So last year I could not do that anymore, and then I could not do it to keep it only African. I opened it up, and guess what? As soon as I opened it up, there were Dutch people coming, and they all want to associate with African culture because they know they are going to learn African things.
Yeah.
And I remember two kids came and they were very disappointed. They
Yeah.
said this was supposed to be kids culture camp, Africa kids culture camp. Why
Yeah.
do we have white people? We have those in school.
Yeah.
So it was painful to hear, but so I thought this is really important that we can have our own spaces.
Yeah.
And if there is any program going on in the community, I'm going there and say, I want to bring the African community.
Yeah.
And so I want us to have spaces where we can be comfortable, and I want us to participate in every sphere of society. Last Wednesday, we had a very wonderful event at the restaurant called Volt Meets Africa. And Volt is a political party, and people are sharing stories, African women sharing how they can have gotten and can get involved in politics and community participation.
Yeah.
So in 5 years, I want to see an undernehmer school for people of African descent, where people can come and learn about entrepreneurship and all the cultural things. And I want to see that in every gemeente, not only in The Hague.
Yeah.
It's already happening, but I want to see more of that because I already have a group of entrepreneurs that I train, people who are on social support and would like to do business. And then the gemeente gives us money to guide them and train them. And most of them are migrants.
Yeah.
And because I'm African, I tend to bring all my African people with me.
Yeah.
And I'm not really ashamed to do that. I
Yeah.
say, I am African, I stand for African people. So if I have a group, it's going to be 80% African. Sorry. If you
Yeah.
don't like it, don't come.
Exactly.
And I want to also see more possibilities for professional involvement
And
at all
then
levels,
yeah.
especially for the youth. So if I can create spaces where the youth can also, for example, come for stage, where they can come and just get an opportunity. So if our company can expand to be able to give people opportunity to participate in the business and work life, that would be a success.
Awesome. This is good. Um, if you could look back in time, what advice would you tell your younger self before starting this journey?
Go for it. Like
Wow.
no hesitation, just go for it.
Wow.
Because
Wow.
there are things I look back that I would have wanted to do, And husband who is too much of a realist, and I'm an optimist.
Yeah.
And sometimes, um, for our community, we tend to focus so much on the challenge and why it's not going to work.
Yeah.
And so it kind of slows you down.
Yeah.
And we are afraid to make mistakes. And to be fair, there is very little room for mistakes because we are working on very thin margins.
Yeah.
So I cannot fault anybody who is so afraid to make a mistake.
Yeah.
Because I know I was in an intercultural group with a lot of Dutch people, and they were talking about, people should be allowed to make mistakes, like business mistakes. I mean, and as they were talking, I remember as the one who said that's talking from a point of privilege because you have the privilege to make a mistake.
Yeah.
If, for example, somebody on outcarrying starts a business and it fails and they have to go back on outcarrying, there's not much room for
Exactly.
mistakes.
Yeah. They get
But
one shot to make. They have to make it right.
it's like life and death,
It has
literally.
to work.
Yeah. So what I would tell myself is go for it, make the mistakes, and just sail through because there's no easy path.
Yeah.
Just not be afraid. There's so many things to be afraid of when it comes to business. You're afraid of taxation. You're afraid of everything. You're afraid of failure. You're afraid of ridicule. I mean, I had many people saying, "Oh, look, there's a doctor who is babysitting kids."
Yeah.
And I was doing childcare. No matter how professional you do it, they'll call you a babysitter.
Yeah.
But no matter how professional a doctor I was, they always called me a nurse simply because I'm a woman. In Mulago, everybody would pass me and say nurse,
Yeah.
even if I was in a doctor's court. So I was already way past that whole thing.
Yeah.
So the same here. There will always be people who don't believe in what you're doing. There will always be people who will try to ridicule. But if you really feel this is the path and this is what you want to do and this is how you want to make a difference, you have only one life and one shot at it. So go for it.
Indeed. Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome. This is for you. And I want you to fess this now to an aspiring entrepreneur. Someone is watching us today, and this conversation has lit a fire under them, and they feel like this dream that I have, this thing that I've wanted to do for so long, I think it's time for me to give this idea life. I think it's time for me to step out and spread my wings and learn to fly on my way down. What advice would you give to any aspiring entrepreneur watching us, especially those from a Ugandan background?
The advice would be that there is so much you have to give, and there are so many people waiting for you to do it, to give it, so many people willing to pay.
Yeah,
So start however small, start, give yourself time. It takes an average of 3 to 5 years for you to really succeed at the business. So don't give up in the first year. But most importantly, there's so much support for you.
mhm,
So when I say there is so much support for you, I really mean there is so much support for you. The Netherlands and all municipalities have all kinds of programs. And I find a lot of people who are afraid, they say, but I'm on social support. I receive an out carrying. Yes, you can start a business with your out carrying without losing your out carrying
mhm.
because we have to negotiate with the Gemeente to give you an opportunity to build your business instead of finding a job.
Yeah,
So there is so much support for you, and there are so many people with programs. The government has put so much money, tunes of billions of euros, into programs to help people with a migrant background to start their business. So if you don't know where to start, just let me know
wow.
because there are no limits. Literally, there's so much support. Some of it is free, some of it you might have to work and pay for it. But what you have to offer, no one else is offering it. So you will definitely have a market.
Awesome. This is good. This is good. Um, wow. We've been
One,
on.
one, one last clarification.
Yes, please.
When I say what you have to offer, no one else is offering it. You might think, but I want to make food and someone else is selling food. So
Uh-huh.
let me rephrase it. What you have to offer, no one else is offering it the way you want to offer it.
Yeah.
Because you are unique in that way that no one can offer it the way you want to offer it. So go for it.
Indeed. Wow. This is good. We've been on quite for a while, coming to about 90 minutes, but I really want us to bring it in on a bit of a fun, light-hearted moment. It's been quite packed, and myself, I'm going to go back and actually go through this again because I believe there's so much value even for me, and I'm just so grateful that you made time to be able to share this with us. And I know, I mean, we were supposed to do this already on Saturday, but because of your entrepreneurship schedule, it just couldn't allow, we were not able to do it. But I'm so glad that we made time for us to be able to do this today. And it's so, I mean, you've put a warmth in my heart, and that this is what we need in the community. This is what is needed for us to be part of creating solutions rather than highlighting what's wrong, to be part of the answer rather than being busy identifying only the problem. And you're doing that in a very powerful way, and I want to acknowledge you for that. But looking back on just your own journey, what's the one Ugandan tradition or habit that you've kept alive while living in the Netherlands?
Well, I think my kids would answer that very well.
Uh-huh.
And that is when I cook a lot of food.
Uh-huh.
So I was first disturbed when, for example, you go to the supermarket and you find that they pack one sausage, two sausages. So if you're a family of two, it's two sausages.
Yeah.
If you're a family of five, it's then five sausages. And that's already called the 4 deal pack.
Yeah.
So I, in Uganda, you don't say, okay. And sometimes my husband will say, don't count the food. I'm like, yeah, but three sausages, we're three. He's like, no, what if somebody wants more? What if
Yeah.
somebody comes in? And
Exactly.
so I've kept that tradition. When I cook always more. And I remember sometimes my kids would be like, huh, you made sausages. So have you cooked Ugandan style or Dutch style? That means is there more than one?
Is it extra? Yeah.
So that I have kept it, and you can see it like in my business is a little bit of a struggle because the whole thing of you have to make an appointment, which is very important to make an appointment.
Yeah.
I also make it like, for example, at the restaurant at the African Granary, it's very advantageous if people can make a reservation.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of restaurants that are reservation only,
Yeah.
but we've also left a little bit of possibility for if somebody just walks in without a reservation. So we'll always cook a little bit more, but also we'll always have space for somebody who just walks in. That's the hospitality part of Uganda.
Amazing. Amazing. And just looking back on your entrepreneurial week, how do you unwind and recharge after a busy week as an entrepreneur?
Well, in the last 1 month, there's not been any unwinding and recharging because it's been very busy.
Uh-huh.
But generally, I like to watch some series,
Yeah.
and I watched my favorite of all time. So I watch either comedy or like crime series.
Yeah.
And I think I watched The Big Bang Theory like 3 times, like watch it from beginning to end and then watch it again.
Oh, Sheldon Cooper.
And there are some that I've watched like that. I've watched it several times, and I just recently I found that my son has also started to watch them. Like, oh, nice! Now that he's watching it, also like, oh, he's becoming like me. So I like to watch some series, or watch a movie when then I'm at home. Also, if my partner is free, then we watch a movie.
Yeah,
It kind of helps me relax and kind of go into a different world that is not the world that I'm in, which is
indeed.
quite nice.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Awesome. And the last but not the least, if you could have dinner with any entrepreneur in the world, living or dead, who would it be and why?
That's really a difficult one because I know I like so many.
Uh huh.
I mean, my life has been kind of a mentorship journey by so many people. So
Yeah,
many entrepreneurs have mentored me,
yeah,
and I could probably say the like when I started before, when it was just business, it was Robert Kiyosaki with all his business books, Rich Dad Poor Dad. And I remember after I read it, I wanted to retire at 45, and then now I realize how unrealistic that was.
yeah.
And yeah, that's I would like to have dinner with Oprah,
Ah,
and just to just be in the presence of greatness.
yeah,
I mean, with all her faults and everything, she really did build an empire. And with her, Africans felt proud
yeah.
to be African, to show that you could also get up there
Indeed.
while doing good things. So I guess I would pick Oprah, but if not, I would pick Obama actually. I don't know. It's so confusing.
Oh,
I'll definitely pick Michelle and Barack Obama. Even you notice that on our menu,
yeah.
the chai tea is called Obama tea. And people ask
Obama
me
tea,
why
indeed.
I don't like Obama. So I call it
Yes,
Obama tea because
yeah,
also we use ingredients tea from Kenya,
yeah.
from the Kenya highlands, and then the ginger from Uganda. So that's Obama tea. So I
Wow.
guess I would pick Michelle and Barack Obama.
Absolutely amazing.
Yeah. They are
Wow.
still building an empire. Until today, they are building an empire and it's still growing.
Indeed.
Yeah. And
Wow.
everybody who thinks about them thinks, oh, black is powerful. I remember just maybe to interject, a friend of ours had one of these kids who just literally like my son. At one point, my son thought those were his brothers. And that time Obama had
Oh, sorry, the
everything.
connection, I lost you a bit there. You started with the interjection and then the connection broke. Could you say that again, please?
Yes, I said there was a time when Barack Obama had just, I think during the time when he was just new on the scene. And I
Yeah,
remember there was one of the boys who grew up with my son. They're literally so close that he thought they were brothers. And there was a time he was at our house. And then Steve, my husband, came in from work. And that day he must have had an important meeting because he was in a tie.
yeah.
And the minute he walked in, and then the boy said, "Oh, uncle, you look like Barack Obama." For 1 minute, I thought Barack Obama has entered into the house. And I realized that that is how if you were looking smart and like a gentleman, what they saw Barack Obama.
Exactly.
And for a young boy, that was amazing that that's the kind of inspiration he gets. And
Yeah.
then later, when he would say, "Oh, like young boys, like, oh, I want to grow my hair," and then his mother would say, "Have you ever seen Barack Obama with long hair?" The discussion would be closed.
Jump, case
So
closed.
that level of motivating a generation and generations to come
Yeah.
it's priceless. So I would probably have with Michelle, Barack, and Oprah, three of them together.
Absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. This has been wonderful. It's been very inspiring. It's been very mind expanding. And I want to say thank you for making time for this. I know your schedule is busy. I know what you had to go through for us to be able to create this. And I don't take that lightly. On behalf of the Career Advancement Network and the Ugandan community in the Netherlands, I want to express my sincere gratitude. Thank you so much. First of all, for the work that you have done and what you continue to do, to be the trailblazer that you are, to be the example and the change agent that you are. The impact that you're making is going to outlive you. And we need more of this within the community. And I want to say thank you for doing this from the bottom of my heart. We appreciate you and we acknowledge you. Maybe we don't say it enough, but I think it's very important that we celebrate our own. I believe in giving credit where it is due, and you have earned it. So thank you so very much. And for making time for this. I know it took a lot from your schedule, but we appreciate that we were able to do this. Do you have any final remarks that you would like to make, or any comments before we bring this in for a landing?
Well, I would like to, of course, thank you, and also thank those who are tuning in and those who will watch later. And the message is that there is a lot of room for everyone in every space. There's a lot of room in every company for more than two, three change makers. And pick your niche. And we do this with joy. We're doing this to make sure that our children will not feel left out of society. And if you feel that you identify with that, or if you feel you need a bit of support, if you feel you need a bit of help finding your way, if you're not ready to give up on life, if you still feel that you have a lot of life left and a lot left to give to your family, your community, and the whole world, get in touch. If you don't know where to start, get in touch. My number, my contacts are public information. You can connect with me everywhere, social media or in person, WhatsApp, because I believe that there can be many of us. There can be many of me. And I believe that sometimes all you need is just a hand, just a little push, or somebody to hold your hand, or somebody to kind of show you the way. And that's why we're here. So, welcome. Get
Wow,
in touch.
absolutely amazing. I just don't want to add to that. Thank you so very much. This has been wonderful. And it's been a pleasure as well as a privilege for me to be able to do this and deliver this UCN Connects with Khan broadcast together with Dr. Mollynn Gift Mugisha-Otim. And with that, it's coming to about half past, which is we've been on for 90 minutes. It doesn't even feel it's the same time flies when you're having fun. But this,
Exactly.
this this was wonderful. This was wonderful. I enjoyed it so much, and I will just end it here.
Thank you.